Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried is a book full of good lines. And I find readers who read with a highlighter may be tempted to highlight every other sentence or so. It's chock full of lines that just when you read them, even if you're reading them silently inside your mind, they reverberate. They're strong, powerful lines. And for our class, we're just reading the first chapter of this much longer book, but I still even think that first chapter there are several very heavy lines that help us understand the weight of what these soldiers are dealing with. And so, part of your homework assignment, I asked you to indicate what your favorite line or what you thought one of the most important lines in the selection is and explain why. And so, what I've done in this video, rather than go through the whole chapter, I just decided to pick out some of the lines that I like. And try to discuss a little bit of why I think these lines are important or what these lines show us about. So I'll start with one of the, it's a powerful line, but it's kind of a creepy line. And it's the line where Cross is thinking about Martha. And they have a complicated relationship. The book goes into more detail about it. From the first chapter, we basically know that Martha is who Cross thinks about, and in Cross's opinion, she becomes a distraction to him and the job, the responsibility he has as far as protecting his troops. But he can't really shake thinking about her. And here, he's thinking about a date where they went to a movie, and he had this temptation to touch her leg, touch her knee, actually. And so he did not, in reality, he let the moment pass, and he did not act on it. And so here he is in warfare. His life is at risk, not even just every day, but at all times, every day. And so it's become a situation, it's become an environment where instead of it kind of nourishing a healthy carpe diem, as far as, wow, my life is at risk, I really should, when I get out of here, take advantage of opportunities as they come. It's not healthy at all. It's kind of the pendulum swings the other way. Instead of not acting on things, it's this thing of acting no matter what the cost. He should have carried her up the stairs to her room and tied her to the bed and touched that left knee all night long. He should have risked it. Think about how violent this line is. So, this comes from a soldier who's been surrounded by nothing but violence for who knows how long. And this is kind of I wonder if it's an indication of just the effect that warfare can have, that it's something that you can't necessarily shake off of you, that it touches you in ways that you can't get rid of and that you continue to carry back home with you. This idea of if he were to have it to do over again, not only would he touch her leg, but he would tie her up in order to do so. And it's not a healthy line at all, but it also shows the severe stress and the possible long-term effects that this stress will have on these soldiers, specifically with Cross and his relationship with Martha. The next line I have, as far as talking about the weight that these soldiers carry, it goes through several lists for different soldiers, and it talks about how some of the soldiers carry like extra protection, extra armor. And the line goes, it's often useless, but they carried it anyway, partly for safety, partly for the illusion of safety. And the irony here, one of the soldiers who decides to carry an extreme amount of weight in the form of extra armor is Lavender. And Lavender is who the sniper is able to bring down while he's relieving himself. Lavender's brought down by a sniper, and the irony is, Lavender's someone who chose to carry all this additional weight. Think about carrying an extra, even 20 pounds, to choose to carry 20 pounds to protect you just because you think it will help you in time of need. Extra 20 pounds in the conditions that these guys are having to work in, sweating under it day after day, no telling how many miles that you march with this extra, let's just say even 20 pounds, and then Boom, a sniper bullet through the head. That extra weight you've carried for so long does no good for you whatsoever. In fact, Kiowa can't get over that it's almost as if this extra weight just made him fall down faster to the ground. It didn't do anything to hold him up. It just carried him down faster. And so this idea of soldiers maybe even knowing that this extra weight won't do anything, but the illusion of safety. It's something that they can do. This is a means of control in a situation that's chaos. I mean, this warfare, the Vietnam War, of course, is where this takes place. Tim O'Brien was a soldier, a journalist, and a soldier in Vietnam, and so we're able to see quite accurately and very well written, I feel, some of the terrible things that these soldiers saw in Vietnam. And if you think about what you have to do to cope with this environment, you have to manufacture ways to be safe. And we see several unhealthy ways this is done. Something's not on here, but it's still an unhealthy way to maintain control and order in chaos is the totem that one of the soldiers carves and presents as a gift to another soldier. They find the dead boy, and it's the dead boy with a gun in one hand and some rice in the other. And one of the soldiers, I think it may be Kiowa's, like, there's a lesson there. There's a lesson, have gun will travel, which is a joke based on an old show called Paladin. But anyway, this guy who's normally seen as a very, he's described as a tender, even-headed soldier. He has this moment where I don't necessarily say he snaps, but he does cut off the thumb of this boy soldier and wraps it up and makes it into a necklace. And it's almost like just kind of some terrible rabbit's foot for luck that he gives to another soldier to carry. So this idea of these soldiers are able to try to make order in the chaos, some ways in healthy ways, some ways in not so healthy ways. This extra weight they choose to carry to try to protect them, but ultimately it will not serve any protection. And the next line also goes with weight, and that's the weight of a ghost, that they're haunted. They all carried ghosts. And this we especially see in Cross. After Lavender is killed, Cross takes this very hard because he feels like the ghost of Martha that he carries with him distracted him. And I think we all know there's nothing that Cross could have done to protect Lavender. I mean, a sniper got him. I don't think Cross could have done a thing about it. However, Cross feels guilty about this. He feels like he was thinking about Martha rather than paying attention to what he should have been paying attention to. And so it's this idea of the men are bringing with them their homes, but they're not bringing their homes with them in a good way, that these men have ghosts haunting them and distracting them and basically putting them at risk while they're in this new environment that's full of danger. For Cross, it's the idea of Martha. He thinks of her as the soldiers in the Fox Tunnel. He thinks about how good it would be to be in that tunnel with Martha and have it collapse around them. And shortly after that, of course, is when Lavender gets killed by the sniper bullet. The next one links with the line, they all carried ghosts, and it's this idea of imagination was a killer. And I think that's also well reflected in the foxhole scene. Not foxhole, but the tunnel, where we have the men come across a tunnel that they have to check out and make sure there's no Viet Cong in there, and they also have to blow it up so that the Cong won't be able to use it in the future as a means of navigation, of retreat, or whatever. But it's this idea of you have no idea what's inside of here. You have no idea what you're going to crawl into, what's in the darkness, what you may come across. And we have this scene, there's a bit of irony with it, this scene where the soldiers draw straws, basically. And the soldier draws the short straw, basically, and has to go in. The interesting thing is that the soldier who goes into the tunnel, we find out he wasn't in danger at all. It's actually Lavender, who thought he was safe, enough to go relieve himself, that was actually in the danger and is shot and dies right away. So this idea that imagination, going with the chaos of things, these young men have no idea what they will encounter. The next line, he wanted her to be a virgin and not a virgin all at once. This line is interesting to me because it just shows the soldiers here are still boys in many ways, and they're really thrust into manhood. I'm not saying that all of the soldiers in Vietnam were boys, but if you think about just the innocence of youth and the innocence of being young, hopefully for quite some time you get to hold on to quite a bit of that innocence, and you kind of ease into the world, and the world shocks you by degrees. It's a Your pessimism is something that's gradual and not all at once. And think about these young men who all of a sudden they go from the lives that they were in and they go over to Vietnam, and they're just dropped into the situation that they are, and there's really no buffer, there's no ease into, they're just thrown into uh, uh, just chaos and horror and evil and madness and all these terrible things that it's just uh, there's there's no way for them to be unscathed by this. And here we find that there's a conflict by what he wants, that he wants Martha to be both pure and not pure, this dichotomy that seems to contradict itself. I just think it's interesting to show that the jar that these men must have felt from the life that they saw to the life that they went to in warfare. And how do they make it make sense, what they knew versus what they see now? How do you make sense with that? How do you reconcile seeing a buddy of yours cut off a finger of a kid and wear it around his neck? That's Those things happened. They were seen. I don't know what kind of mental gymnastics people had to go through, and I hope I never have to know what people had to do to make sense of these things. But I think it's an important line, anyways. The next line is an important one, especially for your quiz, and it shows just kind of you think about warfare, that warfare, yes, it's bad, but there's ultimate greater good, that these soldiers are having to face some terrible things, but they're the good guys, and they're facing this risk for ultimate victory. And this text shows us that these soldiers have no idea what victory is going to be. They don't have a plan. All they're doing is humping it. That's the phrase used several times in our chapter, that they're just moving. It's this motion, because if they stop moving, they they just want to lay down and die. They don't want to get back up. We'll come to that later on, this idea of where they drop to the ground. It's work to get back up, and it's not painless work, it's painful work. It was not battle, it was just the endless march, village to village, without purpose, nothing won or lost. They marched for the sake of the march. So this is a line that really shows that although the brass, although leadership, although somewhere in some building, in some office, on some faxes and paperwork or whatever, there may have been plans for victory, plans for dominance, plans for establishing foothold, gaining ground. These were plans that the soldiers we see in this election, at least, are not aware of, or if they're aware of, they're not acting on them. And that goes, I think, with our next line of she belonged to another world which was not quite real. She talking about Martha. This idea that when these soldiers get over into this combat area, that it only takes a little while for the world that used to be their reality it becomes an unfamiliar dream, and there's this risk of they may forget what they're fighting for, and they're no longer grounded for a cause. I think it's important for soldiers. Maybe it's not. I'm not a soldier, but I would think that if you're in combat, it's important for you to stay grounded in what you're fighting for. And this line lets us know that the soldiers have lost focus of what world they used to belong to, which world that they're fighting for. They're going to have to go back home. But what happens when they forget what home is like? She belonged to another world which was not quite real. This idea of reality of the past becoming just the dream of the future, a dream that will put you at risk. with the danger that is your new reality. The next line is a great one for Kiowa. He's one of our major characters we have. Kiowa is someone who carries a New Testament, so we know that spirituality, religion, is important to Kiowa by the additional weight he carries. And after Lavender's death, he's really impacted by Lavender's death. But the impact isn't really a profound one. It's just he's shocked by how quick he died. He's just like he was there one minute and then dead the next. And just, he was alive one minute and meat the next. And he can't really get over that. And this line lets us know that he has kind of a conflict of morality. That here we have a character who defines himself based on his religion, based on his Christianity, and he can't really find in this moment of Lavender's death what he feels is a good Christian feeling to have. He says he wished he could find some great sadness or even anger, but the emotion wasn't there, and he couldn't make it happen. Mostly, he felt pleased to be alive. So I think this is really interesting. That I'm sure a lot of soldiers felt not only a physical conflict, but a moral conflict based on what moral values they had, and where those moral values belonged, and how far those moral values could get you, and also, sometimes a situation that may require you to sacrifice those values. But here we have Kiowa seems to be affected by what he's seen, and we have here it shows signs that Kiowa may be starting to be desensitized, and he's aware of it, and it bothers him, but there's really nothing he can do about it. Two more lines that kind of go well together, so I'll just kind of do them together. It was the burden of being alive. They were afraid of dying, but they were even more afraid to show it. There's a scene where it talks about how sometimes there'll be uh, the soldiers will get spooked and they'll just start firing. And I think of the scene in Predator, which is a great movie, but there's a scene where you see the soldiers spook. One of them starts to just fire into the jungle, and immediately all the others just start emptying bullet after bullet into the jungle. They don't know why they're shooting. They're just doing it. We have a scene here where it's just like sometimes the soldiers will get spooked. They'll start firing. Combat will engage, and it'll be chaos for a few minutes, and then the firing starts to die down, and reality sets back in. And the soldiers realize that they're still alive. And instead of being comforted by this realization, oh my gosh, I'm still alive, that's great, there's this dread, and there's this sorrow, and there's this just tiredness of, I'm still alive, because since they're not dead, they can't get on that freedom bird to go back home. Since they are alive, they've got to get back up, and they've got to continue the hump. It's interesting that the soldiers talk about those soldiers who wound themselves in order to get discharged. They shoot themselves. And the talk is full of kind of criticizing these soldiers who do this, but they're also jealous of these guys because they are tired of picking themselves up and continuing this hump, because there is no end in sight. They're tired of the march. They wish they could just lay down and sometimes just not have to worry about getting back up. So someone like they did to Lavender can carry them to one of those freedom birds, the helicopter, and take them home, even if they're not alive for it. So I hope you enjoy that first chapter. If you'd like to read the entire book, I encourage you to do so. I don't think you'll be disappointed, and I hope you enjoy these lines that I've talked about. Thank you.